Well, good morning. Welcome to worship with us this morning. I'm Pastor Kelly. I'm so glad to welcome you here with us today to worship our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ on this third Sunday of Advent. We do have some announcements we want to share this morning. Our youth group is going to be having their Christmas party this afternoon in the form of a progressive dinner or progressive lunch, rather. So we're going to be going to 3 different places and having people are going to be welcoming us into their homes, and we're going to eat lots of food and play lots of games. So we're very excited about that this afternoon. So youth just meet at the church bus after the 11 o'clock service today. We have our children's ministry Christmas program this evening. Everyone is invited to come see this awesome play. It's so cute, you guys. Please come and see this. The kids are just amazing. They learn all these songs, and it's a cute little play in there. So please come. That's at 6 o'clock this evening here in Langford Hall. We also want to mention the Young at Heart will have its Christmas gathering here on Tuesday, December 13th at 11. The cost is $10 per person. It's a catered meal by Debbie Suggs. If you haven't had her food, it's really, really good. So please join us for that. Also, we're collecting baby items as well as scarves, hats, gloves, and socks as part of this month's 12 Baskets ministry for Rowan Helping Ministries. All those items can be placed in the blue collection bins here in the hallway. So please be sure to do that this month. The children's ministry is also planning to go see the Christmas lights at Village Park in Kannapolis on Thursday, December 15th at 6. Please let Sarah know if you're planning to do that. She needs to buy tickets in advance, and they do sell out really quickly. So please be sure to let her know if you're planning to attend the Christmas lights. And then next Sunday is our Christmas cantata. So please be sure to attend worship next week at either 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. For this year's cantata called And on Earth Peace. I think that's a lot. We have a lot going on, but it's an exciting time of year. Is there anything else important that I've forgotten to mention?
Well, this morning I have the privilege of inviting my grandparents are going to be joining the church, so come on up. They've made the decision to do that. Yeah. Yeah. If anybody else would like to join the church, come on up now, or just let me know. We'd love to have you. It's a really pretty simple process. Yeah, come on up here. So just a few simple questions to ask you. Will you support our church, First United Methodist Church, by your prayers, your presence, your gifts, your service, and your witness? Definitely. Yes. All right. All right. Well, it's my joy to welcome you in the membership of the church. All right. I want to invite those that are helping with the Advent wreath to come up. I think the Colberts. There we go.
We worship you, Lord, and magnify you, God our Savior.
Our hearts will not be afraid. God, you are coming to save your people.
The blind will receive their sight, the lame will walk, the dead will be raised.
Streams will pour forth in the wilderness, and the desert filled with living water.
God will tear down the mighty from their thrones and lift up the lowly.
Strengthen our hearts, Lord. Give us a steadfast and firm faith.
Sorrow and sighing will pass away, and God will wipe every tear from our eyes.
On that day, we will be filled with everlasting joy and gladness.
We wait patiently for you, Lord, because you will fulfill your promises.
Your mercy is for those who fear you, from generation to generation.
Hear the good news. Christ is coming and will reign forever.
Praise the Lord. All our hope is in the Lord our God. Come, Lord Jesus. As they light the Advent wreath, I invite you to stand as we sing our opening song, Noel.
Love incarnate, love divine, star and angels gave the sign. Bow to babe on bended knee, the Savior of humanity. Unto us a child is born, he shall reign forevermore. Noel, Noel, come and see what God has done. Noel, Noel, the story of amazing love, the light of the world given for us. Noel, Son of God and Son of Man, there before the world began, born to suffer, born to save, born to raise us from the grave. Christ the everlasting Lord, he shall reign forevermore. Noel, Noel, come and see what God has done. Noel, Noel, a story of amazing love, the light of the world given for us. Noel. Noel, Noel, come and see what God has done. Noel, Noel, a story of amazing love, the light of the world given for us. Noel.
I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and mild and sweet their songs repeat, of peace on earth, goodwill to men. bells are ringing, like the choir they're singing, and in my heart I hear there, peace on earth, goodwill to men. And in despair I bow my head. There is no peace on earth, I said. For hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. But the bells are ringing, like the choir they're singing. In my heart I hear them, peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then rang the bells more loud and deep, God is not dead, nor does he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then ringing, singing on its way. The roar revolved from night to day. A voice, a chime, a chant sublime of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And the bells are ringing, like the choir they're singing. And with our hearts we'll hear them, peace on earth, goodwill to men. Do you hear the bells they're ringing, like the angels singing? Open up and hear them, peace on earth, goodwill to men. Peace on earth, peace on earth, peace on earth, goodwill to men. Amen. You can have a seat. I want to invite you to bring your tithes and offerings down. Also, invite our kids down for children's time.
Great. Oh, thank you. How are you? I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm a little late this morning. You know how wise men are. They travel from afar. It's good to see everybody this morning. And if you don't know who I am, I'm the wise shepherd angel. I can't make up my mind which one I like the best. So it's just going to be all three of them at one time. But I've got some stories to tell you this morning. The first story is, I bet y'all know about this person. I'm going to pull him out of here. Okay, let's see if I got him. You in there? Yep. Here we go. Oh, y'all know who this person is? Oh, y'all know who that person is? Yes, the Grinch, the Grinch. You know, at Christmas, I know there's Mickey Mouse. That's his friend. That's Minnie, excuse me. That's his friend. You know, at Christmas, the Grinch does not like Christmas. He did not like anybody who lived in Whoville, and he had a plan that he was just going to steal that first Christmas, didn't he? Steal it. So he dressed up like Santa Claus, and he went down. Oh, he also dressed up. Who was his buddy? There's Max. All right. Here, would you hold Max? Thank you. Don't be rough on him. Oh, that was terrible, wasn't it? All right. So he decided he was going to take all their presents. He took all their Christmas trees, and he took all their his food, and he took it away so they couldn't have Christmas. Well, the Grinch, he just didn't like Christmas. Why didn't he like Christmas? Right. And he also had a very small heart. He didn't have a heart big enough to fill up all the joy and the love that takes place at Christmas. Well, that story, it's not true. But I tell you one that is true. A long time ago, the very first Christmas, an angel and Mary and Joseph, they had the baby Jesus. Guess who wrapped the very first Christmas present? Mary. She wrapped Jesus in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger. So she wrapped the first Christmas present. So then the angels went and told the shepherds, and the shepherds came and saw Jesus. But there was one other group, the wise men. And you know what? What did they see? They saw a star in the sky, and they rejoiced with exceeding great joy as they came to visit. You know, they came to Jerusalem, and they said, "Where is he that was born King of the Jews?" And you know what? There was a Grinch in Jerusalem, and his name was Herod the king. He was a Grinch. He didn't like Christmas. He didn't like Jesus being born. That's right. Thank you. I'll hold many for you. Did you hear that? He didn't like much at all. So he didn't like the whole idea of somebody that was going to replace him. So he was a Grinch. Well, he decided he was going to put together a plan to make sure that Jesus did not take his kingdom away. So he had a meeting with the wise men. And he said, "I want y'all to go find out where Jesus was born and come back and tell me. And I'll go worship him." I don't think Herod the Grinch was wanting to go worship Jesus, was he? because he didn't even want Jesus to be around. So he was not going to go worship Jesus. He was going to try to get rid of Jesus when he found out where he was. So the wise men followed the star, and they went to Bethlehem, and they found Mary and Joseph and the babe in the manger, and they gave them gold and frankincense and myrrh. But an angel came to the wise men and said, "Don't you go back to Jerusalem, because Herod, once you tell him where Jesus is going to get rid of the baby Jesus." So the wise men turned around and went back east where they were. The angel also did one other thing. He told Joseph and Mary, "I want you to take the light of the world," which was Jesus, "and go to Egypt, and you stay there till Herod dies." That old Grinch is not going to get Jesus, is he? No. So that's why I said there was probably a Grinch at our first Christmas too, because he tried to steal Christmas from us. There you go. Thank you for letting me use many. So, I want you to think about something today. How big is your heart? Little, tiny, or is it going to be what? You want it to be big this time of year, to be filled with love and joy for everybody. You want to show love and joy to everybody. And that's what Christmas is all about. It's a time when we can show love to you and 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 you. So, remember that first Christmas when somebody tried to steal it. We didn't want that to happen. So now, since we have Christmas today, and Jesus is still here today for us to give praise to and show our love. Are you ready to pray? Everybody ready to pray? Hands out, hands up, head up, hands together, drop them. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for these children. Truly, they are our joy, and we do love them very much. We want you to always know that we thank you for our pastors. We thank you for our Sunday school teachers. We thank you for our youth leaders. We thank you for our music director. We thank you for all those people that help us to learn what you are all about. Guide us, direct us, always keep us safe, and remember one thing: things aren't always the best thing. Our love for you should be number one, and that's the thing that we should practice the most. Guide us, direct us, and keep us safe. In thy name we pray. And everybody said, Amen. Thank you. Oh, come here a minute. Come here a minute. I forgot to give you something. Here. It's your own heart. Here. It's got Christmas in it. And you take it home, do what you want to with it. You can pass it on if you want to. Remember, when you have one of these, you got to show joy and love. Okay? Okay. Thank you for Max. I'm going.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd, Wiseman, Angel. The children are going with Miss Sarah to Children's Church. Today is the third Sunday in the Advent season, and today is a day where we celebrate the joy that we have. And there is a lot around us that brings joy to our hearts, but we also have concerns that we bring this morning also. We have several folks we want to remember in prayer today. We continue to remember Gail Kiger, and we continue to pray for those families that lost loved ones recently, Harold Weinkauf's family and Harriet Clodfelter's family. Are there others that we can lift up in prayer today? Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll be in prayer for him. Griffin's having his tonsils out. That's on Friday. That's no fun. So we'll definitely be in prayer for him.
Kelly, I've got to praise my Aunt Kelly, who we've been praying for, is here this morning. She's had a stint in the hospital and is doing better and here this morning, so that's a praise.
Yes, that is a joy. We're so happy you're here. Who is? Oh, Miss Setta. Okay. Well, I didn't know that. We'll definitely be in prayer for you, okay? Yeah. Right. How about we'll just pray all around? We'll be in prayer for everybody. Well, let's go to God in prayer this morning. Let us pray. Oh God, on this third Sunday of Advent, Lord, we sing Christmas joy. You have given us this Sunday during our 4-week, or rather this year, our 5-week journey to Christmas, to have an early celebration of the birth of the Christ child. We know that we are still miles away from Bethlehem, but we are almost there, and we know it won't be much longer. And so we offer to you our songs of Christmas joy this morning, while at the same time knowing full well that there is still more for us to do before we finally arrive to the little town of Bethlehem on Christmas Eve. Lord, we know there are more people to serve. There are more ways for us to give, more prayer times to lift up the many prayer requests that we have on a weekly basis, more Wednesday choir practices, and Pastor Will may feel like maybe he needs more time in prayers from us as he continues to lead us through this really busy season, while also continuing to bring us the good news of Christ. Oh God, we need these next few weeks to truly reclaim Christmas. Help us to use the remaining time of Advent wisely by spending time in prayer, in worship, and in service. May this be a time of not only reclaiming Christmas, but where we allow Christmas to reclaim us. Reclaim us to be the people that you have called us to be. Reclaim our church to be the community of faith that you have called us to be. Reclaim our hearts to sing Christmas joy, even as we live in a community and world of so much anxiety, pain, brokenness, and suffering. May we be your Christmas people all throughout the year. And so on this Sunday, where you call us to sing Christmas joy a little early, we especially pray for those who are experiencing sorrow or loss, who may be going through a difficult time in their life right now. We pray for those who have health concerns, Lord. We pray for those who are seeking a new direction in their life. We pray for those who are troubled in spirit. We pray for all of those who could use a prayer today. A prayer especially maybe that you prayed that goes like this. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
So this morning we are continuing our sermon series about the light of the world. Jesus is the light of the world. And today I want to be just upfront with you. I have an agenda this morning. And that agenda is that if you have drifted away, if you've drifted away from the church, if you've drifted away in your faith, if you've drifted away, I hope that you come home. My prayer is that you come home for Christmas. Come home into the loving arms of Jesus, the light of the world. That's my agenda this morning. Just wanted to be straightforward with you as we begin. Let's begin with a word of prayer, and as you pray with me, don't forget to pray for me. Oh Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts and minds together be found acceptable in your sight. Oh Lord, our rock and our redeemer. Everyone, amen. So today, I wanted to invite everyone who has ever made some kind of profession of faith, everyone who's ever been baptized, maybe you grew up in the church, but then something happened. Maybe you've wandered away, maybe you've been pushed away, maybe you had a bad church experience. We've all had some bad church experience. Maybe you just lost interest and you drifted away. I want you to come back, to re-engage. I want you to know that none of us are perfect. In fact, if you find a perfect church, you better not join because it won't be perfect anymore, right? None of us are perfect. We are all sinners. We are all sinners who have fallen short of the glory of God. We all have doubts. We all have fears and anger and disappointment. But guess what? It still hasn't put out the light of Christ in us. The light of Jesus still shines in you. So as a way of reconsidering, as a way of re-engaging with your faith, I want to tell you the story of a person that we usually don't spend a whole lot of time talking about during this Christmas season, and that is Herod. We spend time talking about the shepherds and the angels and Mary and Joseph and, of course, baby Jesus, but how much time have you ever spent talking and thinking about Herod? And so we're going to spend a little time talking about Herod this morning, but I want you to consider the thought. Maybe there's a little bit of Herod in each one of us. So Herod, just to give you some history, Herod was somewhat of a puppet king over Judea in the Roman Empire. He was known as Herod the Great, and Herod was a very accomplished man. He was very talented. He was good at building things, building aqueducts, building forts, and building projects. He even helped rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. But Herod's goal in all of that, the reason that he was so ambitious, the reason that he did all of that was because he desired eternal fame. He wanted eternal fame. He wanted to be known forever. He wanted his lineage to continue as king of Israel. And so he was so politically minded. He wanted to be known forever, even after death. And so just bear with me a moment, just a little bit of history this morning. So Julius Caesar, who was the emperor of Rome, he was murdered in 44 BC. And then there came a battle as to who would be the next in line, who would now take control over Rome. And the battle was between Octavian, who becomes Caesar Augustus, and Mark Antony, okay? And Mark Antony had a very well-known mistress. You remember who Mark Antony's mistress? Cleopatra, right. And so there was this civil war that broke out in Rome with people who aligned with Octavian and others that aligned with Mark Antony, and they were trying to figure out who was going to be the next in charge, who was going to be the next emperor of Rome. And Herod was a strong supporter of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. But unfortunately for Herod, Mark Antony was defeated, and so Octavian becomes the next Caesar, the next emperor of Rome, Caesar Augustus. And so Herod, because he was a supporter of Mark Antony, Herod was on the naughty list. Herod was an enemy of the state, and he knows this, and so he makes a very bold decision. He's an enemy of the state. He's kind of a wanted man, but he decides, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm going to have a face-to-face meeting with Caesar Augustus. And so he did. He went and had a meeting face-to-face with Caesar Augustus, and he says, you know what? You know that I was a supporter of Mark Antony, and you saw how loyal I was to him, even to the bitter end. Today, I'm just going to pledge my loyalty to you, Caesar Augustus. And Caesar Augustus, he really liked that bold move, that he was willing to come and talk to him face to face. He was an enemy of the state. He was a fugitive. He was on the run. But he came and talked to him and said, all right, okay, I can respect that. And so Caesar Augustus allows Herod to remain king over Judea, but he also gives him control over Samaria and Jericho and Gaza. And like I said, Herod, he was a political mastermind. He was really just trying to control and to continue his legacy. His ambition controlled him. He had 10 wives. Lord bless him, 10 wives. He had several sons, and he kept changing his mind, and he kept changing his will as to who would be the next to take over. And eventually all of his family kind of just said, all right, we've had enough of you, and they wanted nothing to do with him. He was so consumed. You might even say he was obsessed with trying to control the future. He wanted to control the kingdom even long after he was dead and gone. He was so obsessed with this. And then, finally, by the time we get to the Christmas story and Herod's small role in the Christmas story, he's 70 years old and he's very sick. He's dying from a painful kidney disease. And at the end of his life, he's so obsessed with trying to think, well, how can I continue to control from the grave? And how can I continue my legacy? How can I protect and preserve what I've already established? He's so obsessed about this, and he gets some really, really disturbing news. He gets some news that just 5 miles away, 5 miles south in the sleepy little town of Bethlehem, a new king has been born. Let's look at Matthew chapter 2. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, where is the one who's been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose, and we have come to worship him. Now, you can imagine how that question must have landed in Jerusalem. Everybody was probably telling the Magi, shh, be quiet. You better make sure that Herod doesn't find this out, because he will be angry. And when Herod is angry, the people suffer. Verse 3, when King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all of Jerusalem with him. Because when King Herod was disturbed, it was dangerous. The people suffered. Verse 4, when he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, and he asked them, where is this Messiah supposed to be born? And I'm sure the chief priests, they were a little bit scared getting called into Herod's office, but they answer his question. Well, verse 5, in Bethlehem of Judea, they replied, for this is what the prophet has written. In other words, this has been prophesied for many, many years. It's been predicted for many, many years, and all the Jews knew this. They had been reading their Jewish Bibles. They knew this. Verse 6, but you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Wow, this was the worst news possible for Herod. He's on his deathbed. He's so obsessed about, what's going to be next and controlling even from the grave and leaving one of his sons in control. This is the worst news imaginable for Herod. So then Herod calls the Magi, verse 7. He wants to talk to these wise men, these wise guys, and found out from them the exact time that the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search carefully for the child. And as soon as you find him, report to me, wink, wink, nod, nod, so that I may go and worship him. And after they heard the king, they went on their way. And the star that they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where Jesus was, where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming into the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. They worshiped him. What else could they do? Now, when we think about worship in the modern church, for some reason, worship has become synonymous with singing. Yes, you do worship when you sing, but worship is not just singing. Y'all know that, right? It's not just singing. Worship is recognizing that we are in the presence of majesty, that we are in the presence of greatness. We're in the presence of something that should cause awe and respect. Worship is about surrendering to something greater than ourselves. And so these men, these wise men, they're wealthy, they're smart, they traveled a long way. And here they are in the presence of a baby. Maybe, the wise men they came a little later, so maybe it's more like a toddler. A toddler who has no physical power, but they knew who he was. And so they dropped to their knees and they worshiped him. And 5 miles away, just 5 miles back to the north in Jerusalem, Herod is worried to death. He's on his deathbed. He's so obsessed with controlling things. His whole life has been built around preserving and protecting and controlling, even trying to control beyond the grave. And on his deathbed, he is convinced that he is not going to surrender. He's not going to surrender and bow the knee to anyone or anything. Maybe that's why I say there's a little bit of Herod in all of us. There's a little bit of Herod in all of us in that we try to protect and preserve and control things. We try to leverage our power, even if it means coming to church and things like that. We say, well, we don't mind praying and reading the Bible if it's going to help me facilitate my future. You see the problem with that? We don't like the whole idea of saying, God, here's a blank check with my life. You ever thought about that? That's what it should be like. God, here's a blank check with my life. And I know some of you young people, you don't even use checks anymore. It's like saying this, God, my answer is yes. Now what's the question? God, my answer is yes. Now what's the question? It just doesn't come natural to us. We're so consumed with controlling and preserving our will. Continues, verse 11. Then they opened their treasures, the wise men. They opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. And Herod, he realizes that he's been outwitted by these wise men. He's been kind of duped by these young Jewish parents. He's furious. And when Herod is furious, the people suffer. When Herod is furious, people die because he had spent his whole life trying to control the outcomes, control the future. And yet now it's not the outcome that he wanted. Verse 13, when they had gone, the wise men, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up, he said, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt and stay there until I tell you. For Herod is going to search for the child to kill him. So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt. Herod has been outsmarted by the wise men. He's been outsmarted by these young Jewish parents. And he decides, in fact, he gets angry. He decides that he will not be thwarted by this baby king, this toddler king. And so Herod, he gives orders that we cannot imagine anyone ever giving. He gives orders that we cannot imagine any soldier ever following through with, unless you knew just the wrath of Herod. He says, I know what I'll do. I'll push the nuclear button. And I'll go and I'll kill all the baby boys around that age. And so one horrible night, the soldiers roll into the town of Bethlehem. They go into every single house, every single hut, every single farmhouse in the surrounding area of Bethlehem. And they pulled out any boy who looked like he might be of that age. And they murdered him in front of their family. Can you imagine that? Imagine the atrocity of that. But that's who Herod was. Soon after this very tragic act, Herod dies. And he dies a terribly painful death. It was so painful that he tried to commit suicide but was not successful. Herod was so wicked and he was so controlling. And he knew that people would celebrate once he was dead. He knew that. And he didn't like the thought of people celebrating when he died. And so he had all these people, these distinguished people in the community, he had them all locked up and imprisoned. And he gave orders that within the hour of his death, that they were to be killed. Because he wanted everyone to be mourning when he died. Herod, he was a bad dude. But thankfully, that last part of the story didn't happen. When Herod died, they released all the prisoners. The text continues, verse 19. After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared to them in a dream, to Joseph in Egypt, and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who are trying to take the child's life are dead." So Herod the Great, Herod the king of Judea, in this incredible twist, which we know is providential, in this incredible twist of fate. This man who spent his whole life trying to protect and preserve and even rule beyond the grave, he becomes just a small little footnote in the story of the King of Kings. Jesus, the Savior of the world, the light of the world. That's Herod's story. He tried so hard to control it all himself. But then he becomes just a small footnote in the story of the King of Kings, Jesus. And so that brings us to you. What will be your story? What will your story be? What will your story be with the relationship? What will your relationship be with the light of the world? Will it be a story of resistance? Or maybe you'll take your cue from the wise men. Maybe your life story will be a story of worship. Will you spend your whole life like Herod, trying to control and preserve and protect and say, you know what, it's all about my will, not thy will? Or will you say, all right, Lord, I surrender to you. It's not my will, Lord, but thy will be done. Here's my life. My answer is yes. Now what's the question? One day somebody's going to be forced to tell that story of your relationship with the light of the world. They'll either have to make something up or they'll be able to tell the truth. What will your story be? You remember from last week, John, when he writes his gospel, he's an old man and he's looking back over all that he's experienced, all of his life, and he's saying, how can I sum it up best? How can I tell people, how can I get to the heart of who Jesus is? And he says this, in him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Church, that's good news this morning. That's amazing news that the light of Jesus still shines. And guess what? The light of Jesus, it still shines in you. The darkness that you've experienced can't compare to the light of Christ that's in you. It can't overcome it. All the unanswered prayers, all the people that have disappointed you, all the darkness that you've experienced in life, it still cannot put out the light of Christ that is in you. And that's why you're here today. That's why you're listening to this sermon, because there is a light that overcomes darkness. The darkness cannot blow it out. And so I just urge you this Christmas season, would you consider re-engaging? Would you consider just taking a small step to re-engage with the Savior of the world? Maybe for you, that's praying for the first time in a long time. Maybe that's opening your Bibles up for the first time in a long time. Or maybe like the Magi, maybe it's just simply being in awe of who Jesus is and bowing down figuratively or literally to worship him. So as we close our service this morning, I want to invite you to think about that. What would it look like to re-engage, or maybe to engage for the very first time with Jesus, the light of the world? I don't know what that first step is for you, but I pray that you'll take it. Because the light is still in you, no matter what. No matter how far you've wandered, no matter how bad the sin, that light's not going out. Would you re-engage? There's a song, it was a contemporary Christian song, although it's getting pretty old, it's not really contemporary anymore. But it goes like this. It goes, light of the world, you step down into darkness. Open my eyes, let me see beauty that made this heart adore you. Hope of a life spent with you. So here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you that you are the light of the world who stepped down into our darkness. Father, every single one of us here today, we have a story. In the next few moments, Lord, I pray that you would challenge us to take the next step. Lord, push us past our resistance. Push us past our excuses. Push us past whatever is in the way. I pray that we would just worship you, that we would surrender, that we would literally or figuratively bow our knees before you and say, yes, Lord, we worship you, the light of the world. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I invite you to stand as we sing our last song.
Away in a manger, no crib for a bed. The little Lord Jesus lay down his sweet head. The stars in the sky looked down where he lay. The little Lord Jesus asleep on the hay. The cattle are lowing, the baby awakes, but little Lord Jesus no crying he makes. I love thee, Lord Jesus, look down from the sky and stay by my cradle till morning is nigh. Be near me, Lord Jesus, I ask thee to stay close by me forever and love me, I pray. Bless all the dear children in thy tender care, and fit us for heaven to live with thee there. Let's go forth from this place to share the light of the world. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Invite you, if you're able, we're going to need a little help up here clearing the stage. Get ready for the children's program tonight at 6 o'clock. And here, you do not want to miss that. Go in peace. Be near me, Lord Jesus, I ask thee to stay close by me forever and love me, I pray. Bless all the dear children in thy tender care, and fit us for heaven to